Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of Voices of the Omniverse. Today, we're tapping in with a creator and a great friend of mine who's building a sound, space, and community all at once. Hailing from Connecticut, MilkyWaay is a producer, content creator, and the mind behind The Kitchen, a platform where artists come together to create, collaborate, and have real conversations. From hip-hop beats and sample libraries to instrumentals for museum exhibits, his work reflects a wide sonic range as a multi-instrumentalist who's always pushing his creativity. At the core of it all, his mission is to unite the Connecticut music scene and build something bigger than just music. Today, we'll get into his process, his vision, and the purpose behind it all. And remember, this isn't a podcast, it's a conversation in rhythm. MilkyWaay, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Just talk to me a little bit about, your journey, getting into music, where you are right now. Maybe, talk about a little bit some of your inspirations, whatnot. But yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah, okay. So I'm MilkyWaay. I'm a producer based in the Hartford, Connecticut area. I've been making beats for about 7 years now. I started in college, but I've been really influenced by music my whole life. I started playing violin when I was only 8 years old, I think. I was about in second grade, so right around 8 years old, yeah. And then I played string instruments all the way through until college, and that's when I started making beats. So I started playing the upright bass in high school, but then I couldn't bring that to my dorm room.
Yeah, right.
So I just kind of switched to making beats. I still had the urge to make music, but I couldn't play it. So I did it on my computer instead.
Interesting. So I didn't know that. So you started out playing instruments before you even started making beats. So what kind of perspective do you think that's been able to help you with?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the musicality, I've been studying this stuff in a classroom since I was a kid. So I understand the music theory pretty well, which has enabled me understand not just what the music feels like, but actually what's going on underneath. And I can recognize stuff like chord progressions and stuff, which is pretty cool. But more so, I've just been around the music my whole life, and I've been around other creative people, other people in orchestra and in band and stuff. So I've been surrounded by musicians and just been loving music my whole life. So it was just kind of a natural progression in college to start making beats because I couldn't really play my instrument anymore. So
I heard this quote that Prince apparently was saying that, all beats is just music in theory, because you're not actually producing sound with air or anything. So all the best that you can make with, producing a beat or anything is just what a song could sound like. And ever since I started having that perspective on it, I started trying to take a different approach with making beats myself, whether it's trying to picture the venue that this could be played in. Venue meaning it could be your headphones, it could be a car, it could be a concert hall or a stadium, but all those things I think at least affect my decision in terms of what kind of 808s I want to use, what kind of drums, what kind of snares, strings, so on and so forth. So what do you feel are some of the the ways that you navigate your sound? What are certain things that are your own self rules or things that you try to pay attention to when you're making music?
Yeah, so I guess I was saying, I come from a spot of making music on instruments. So when I'm making beats, at least I tend to make beats from scratch more often than using samples. I'm not opposed to using samples. I use samples all the time, but I feel I make beats from scratch more often than your typical producer, just because I started off plucking on my string instrument and playing with the bow. So
right.
Yeah, it's natural for me to just want to build something up from a single instrument. Yeah. I try not to have too many rules when it comes to making beats. I try to have all sorts of different approaches and take different, even using different softwares, even using different DAWs, which is digital audio workspaces. It can be really helpful to just kind of get out of a pattern or a loop that you're stuck in. So yeah, I try to not have too many rules and just stay open to all different stuff.
You often give artists a space to experiment in your show, The Kitchen. How do you balance the freedom that we were just talking about now with also the technical, more structured background that you have? So how do you balance that freedom with structure throughout your whole creative process?
Yeah, so one of the things with The Kitchen is I like to invite on artists and, let me talk a little bit about The Kitchen.
Yeah,
first.
Please.
So The Kitchen is my show where I'll invite on an artist every month and I'll interview them. I'll make them a beat and I'll record them doing a freestyle over that same beat. and the whole thing goes up on YouTube, and we put clips up on social media. So it's a great way for artists to kind of show off like the music making process behind the scenes. And yeah, it's a good question. Like, how do I balance the technical side of it versus like the creative side of it? I do like to have on artists that I've worked with before, at least once or twice. But at the same time, so like I do have like some rapport with people. I kind of like know how the process is going to go.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like there's always kind of I don't like to plan too much ahead. Like the artist comes in and we kind of talk about what we're going to do like on the spot. There's not too much like planning ahead. Like I've never had people like send me samples ahead of time or like do any of that. So I always try to keep that like,
As organic as possible, would you
yeah,
say?
you know, like anything can happen on the spot. Like there's not too much planning ahead. There's not too much structure. Like you just kind of come in and we got to do it on the spot, because that's what it's really about. Like it's about like what's organically happening behind the scenes. It's not, I'm not trying to like curate like you know, a fake process at the end of the day. I really want to show the process as it really is.
Interesting. So, would you say that structure, provides you freedom or creative freedom, that having a high level of a technical ability allows you to be as free as possible when you're making music? Because I feel like other times when I see people who, have less of a skill set or whatnot, they might not feel as free to do what they want because they don't know everything that they can do. What's your position on that?
Yeah, I almost feel like it just comes down to like practice, but practicing like a wide variety of stuff, because I've like experimented a ton, so I kind of know like my limits. Like I know like, oh yeah, I can kind of make pop beats, I can make like this kind of beat, but I've never really like made a jazz beat per se, or like
Right.
I know like, so I've explored my limits, so I kind of like know my limits, and it kind of just has come from like a lot of practice and a lot of experimentation. And so that way like I feel like I do have a lot of like, experience and structure to go off of when I'm making a beat from scratch. It's not just like being thrown into a whole new genre. Like I've tried stuff like that before, or I know maybe like steer clear of the
Mhm.
different genre.
And when you're steering clear of a different genre, is it because you're feeling that you're not emulating that sound or that vibe accurately, or is it more because it doesn't really align with your interests, or it's like just not a sound that like, it just might be music you don't really like to listen to?
Yeah, well, honestly, I say like I'll try to like steer clear of stuff, but I try not to steer clear of anything. Like I try to experiment with like, all sorts of stuff. I might steer clear of stuff on the kitchen specifically, because I don't want to make somebody like a lo-fi beat that's just like bad or something. Like I don't make a lot of lo-fi beats, so I don't want to like just make somebody like a beat that comes out bad and then
Mhm.
you put that on the kitchen. Like I want to make sure I'm providing like a good
Mhm.
level beat to the person I'm working with on the kitchen. But yeah, in terms of like steering clear of beats, yeah, I feel like it really comes down to like almost the mood. Like sometimes I'm just not in the mood to make like a light, happy beat, and I know like that's just not really the energy, and I feel like it's gonna come out
Mhm.
better. Sometimes it comes down to the mood.
How do you balance maybe other people's mood? Maybe you're having kind of like a somber-ish day, and the rapper comes in and he's super high energy and wants to do something, really out there and whatever. Like, how do you balance that? Do you end up matching his or her level, or what happens in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I want to get on the person's level. If they come in like super hype, I want to, I don't want to like under deliver. And,
Right.
vice versa. If they come in and they're like chill, I don't want to, bring a bunch of energy and like have them like not fuck with the beat. So yeah, it's definitely very important to get on the artist level. So, and one of the big ways I do that is just, talking to them for like 10 or 15 minutes before the session, or even just like while we're making the beat, while we're picking out samples, or while we're just starting something. Just kind of like chatting and seeing what they're up to, like what their vibe is. And then, if you've been talking to somebody for like 10 minutes, you're probably more on the same level than, if you just walked in the door.
100%. Now, obviously, collaboration changes music a lot, and especially when you're working in something like the kitchen, it takes two to tango. It takes someone to at least make a beat, and it takes another person to perform on it, right? So when you're working with these other artists, how do ideas evolve differently in real time versus in isolation? Whether like the speed that they evolve, or maybe the different routes that, the beginning of the song might have taken and where you guys actually ended up at.
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of times when I'm working with artists who are also producers, like I'll end up with a beat that is a different style than I could have made by myself when it's a collaborative idea. Or even if it's just the artist is like very vocal while making the beat and they have a lot of input, the beat will go in different directions than I would have brought it by myself. And it can really help like showcase a wider variety of styles. Like as much as I like to say, oh, I can do all sorts of styles, I like to experiment with all sorts of stuff. Working with other people and getting that creative input from other people, whether they're producers or just artists, like giving their input vocally, that can really like create a new kind of beat that I wouldn't have been able to make by myself. So it's cool to explore that like wider style of, you know, genres and wider style of productions through collaboration on the kitchen.
And because even when you're talking about it, I know the audience won't be able to see it, but I could tell you're smiling. And so it's like, it's something it definitely brings a lot of great emotions, that experimentation, that excitement aspect. Now, when you're in that mode, you know, what are certain things that you guys work on to maybe get over like a creative hurdle or slump, or maybe even a disagreement, so you guys can continue to build on that momentum of evolving the sound?
Yeah. One of the biggest things is just like talking through it, I feel like. A lot of times in the studio, I feel like people aren't as willing to talk in the studio because it's loud and because the communication just kind of falls off a little bit. And then people do stuff like when they're making beats, they just kind of like write over each other's stuff, or maybe when they're like recording, they just, you know, maybe they don't with each other's verses or something. But I think the easiest way is to just kind of like talk about it. And, you know, at the end of the day, like if you just say politely, oh, you like, you know, whatever. I don't know if I'm liking this bass sound, or like, I feel like you could have delivered that line a little bit harder. Like at the end of the day, if you just talk about it and are straightforward, like people will, they appreciate the feedback, and they have the same goal. They want the beat to come out as good as possible, and they want the song to come out as good as possible. So, you know, just talking about it and making sure the communication is open is really important.
What are some of those like qualities or traits that you've seen in yourself and that you've seen maybe other artists exhibit that you're like, you know, you downloaded it, you were like, oh, okay, I want to try to, you know, do that when I'm in this type of setting next time?
Oh, okay. So one of the big things that like music has forced me to do is like, you know, networking, increase my networking skills, and also just finding like networking opportunities. Like it's one thing to actually like go somewhere and like make friends and have like, but it's another thing to actually like figure out which rooms are worth getting into, you know, where the places even are. So from very early on, like once I graduated college, like I was working with some people in college, but once I graduated, I didn't really have a ton of people to work with. So one of my first things was like I tried to get out into the wider Connecticut music scene and go to like showcases and some beat battles, and also try to lock in with some like engineers at studios and just kind of like get my beats heard and you know, put my name out there to some artists. So yeah, the networking was definitely a big thing. And then another skill that I've been able to develop thanks to the kitchen has been kind of like project management over a long period of time.
Yeah, please get into that.
Yeah, both with the main series of the kitchen and how it's developed, and also the ideas I have for it in the future, as well as smaller individual projects like the Cypher I hosted last year. That took like a ton of planning over maybe like a 4-month period, and it was a lot of like reminding people, sending out like lots of emails and sending out like customized invites and stuff, and also just like coordinating with the videographer and the engineer at the studio and all the people who were coming, just to make sure the event went like super smoothly. So like the kind of project planning and project development skills have been, I don't know if the average producer has like a lot of opportunity to experience that, because you know, normally beats aren't like a huge long-term project, but I've definitely had a little bit of experience in like that, which has been, you know, pretty cool.
You just said something interesting right there at the end, where like beats aren't necessarily a long-term project. Do you think we've begun to undervalue a beat? With maybe, I know we could definitely talk about that, you know, YouTube, all these type beats and whatnot has oversaturated the market of, you know, production itself. But is that in a way, are we devaluing beats?
Well, it's hard to say that definitely, because there's so many more beats. So, just from a supply demand perspective, like
Hmm.
back in the 80s, there were only a few producers making high quality beats. So they were allowed to charge a lot because there wasn't a huge supply of them. So if you wanted a good beat, there were only a couple options. Nowadays, like, it's so easy to make a good beat. There's so many resources available, and there's so many platforms to get them out there. You can post your beats on Instagram or YouTube or like Twitter and just get them like to seen by like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So on one hand, like, there's tons more beats, so they're cheaper, of course. But on the other hand, we listen to a lot more music in our daily lives, and I think a lot more people today listen to just instrumentals or just beats.
Mm.
So I wouldn't go as far as to say we've devalued like beats in our society or in our culture. Like, I think beats and also producers are in the best spot they've ever been in, like, at this point, and I think it's only getting better. But there's definitely it's definitely a little bit harder to make it or I wouldn't even say it's harder to make it as a producer. Just like the average beat is cheaper because there's so many of them.
Interesting. Yeah, it's such an interesting situation because I'd agree it is cheaper in relatively, especially for like a lot of these artists themselves. More artists nowadays I feel like are learning how to make their beats while they're starting to rap and whatnot, because they're also seeing it as like more cost effective. If I don't got to be coming out of my pocket with X amount to pay whatever producer every time I want to make a new album or something, that's money saved that I could take on tour or take to buy more plugins or whatever it may be.
It's funny that you say that, because that's how I started making beats. When I first got into college, I wanted to rap, and I made a song, and I got a beat on YouTube, and I brought it to the freestyle club, and I performed it, and then they were like, "Oh, it sounds cool. Did you buy the beat yet?" And I was like, "You gotta buy the beat? I don't have money for that. I'm a college freshman." So I was like, "I'll learn to make my own beats instead," and then I never went back to the rapping.
That's so funny. You know what? While we're on the topic of college, obviously, I mean, the audience doesn't know this either, but we both went to college with each other as well. I guess from your perspective, and then we'll see how I could dish in whatever 2 cents I have. But what was your perspective on really getting into like the music and music scene in college, and even maybe your first time, meeting me, or even just seeing me, perceiving me, whatever it may be, and then how did that go from moving forward from there?
Sure. So when I first got to UConn, I got involved in the UConn Hip Hop Initiative, which was like this freestyle club, basically. It was hosted at the WHUS radio station in the UConn Student Union, and we'd go up there on Thursday nights, and everybody would just like bring snacks and stuff, and we'd just sit in a big circle and freestyle. And I went a couple times. I went to perform my song, and then I started bringing my beats for people to rap over the beats, because they used to just get YouTube beats, but then we started having some producers bring their own beats, and I would bring a couple of my beats. They're all trash, but people were nice, and they rapped over them anyway. So then I think you showed up like the next year. I think you showed up when I was like a sophomore, right? Because you were 1 year younger than me, and you were a pretty awesome freestyler, honestly. Like, I feel like we shifted away from we were like shifting towards beats a little bit, and then we had like a resurgence of the rap that year, because you and then Marcus also were just like super fire freestylers. Like,
I appreciate it. That's funny. Yeah.
And I remember I actually made a joke about this like at least once or twice when we were leaving. I was like, yeah, that kid Adonis, like, because you would always say, "Oh, like, did you catch that double entendre?"
Yeah.
But I would always say, like, when we were leaving, like, "Oh, did you guys catch his double entendre?"
Yeah. That's so funny. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, you don't have no idea how many times I would say that, even just by myself at home, or just like, I was so engrossed when I was like listening to like other people's music, like I was obsessed with trying to find like all triple meanings of like an MF Doom line of whatever it is. Like, I love digging into all of that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I was like making fun of you a little bit at the time, but
that's funny.
Yeah, and honestly, it's impressive to do a double entendre while you're freestyling. I couldn't do that at all. So then after that sophomore year, we had a lot of, the club didn't really change. It kind of just stayed, freestyling and stuff. But a lot of the people we made a lot of cool connections with a lot of people. I wouldn't say a ton of them are still making music, but a lot of the people that I met who are still making music, I'm still working with them. So it was cool to like make those connections really early on in my career.
Mhm. And so we were talking a little bit about the, the Hip Hop Initiative Club and just the Cypher circles. Can you take me through like what a typical night was like? What was the vibe? Maybe just what was like the structure of the night, and just what do you remember feeling, and what were some like maybe fond memories you still hold?
Yeah, sure. So every Thursday night, we would head to the Yukon Student Union, and then I would stop at the convenience store and I would grab a MilkyWaay bar, and that's actually how I got the name DJ MilkyWaay.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
So then we would go upstairs, and there was like a big room. It basically had records along every wall. Like there was just shelves of records on every wall and a whole bunch of couches set up in a circle. And everybody would just like come in and like sit down, eat their snacks. We would plug in somebody's phone to the aux cord, and it would just like play a beat on the speakers. And then we would just go around in a circle freestyling. Sometimes it was just like a half-hour freestyle, and then everybody would like head home or whatever. It was like a Thursday night, so sometimes people had exams or stuff. But sometimes we'd go for like 3-4 hours just like freestyling like late into the night. People just like going back and forth and yeah, it was really cool. It's a great way to just like spend a weekend night in college.
That's so cool. Yeah. Just trying to remember, because like when I first like got introduced to it, it was through a friend of my roommates, and he had brought me in, and we were Ruben. If he's listening, thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, he put me on to the club. I'm trying to remember. I think I just went in, like he convinced me, because I was a little like skeptical at first. I was just like, oh, let's see how like if this will be fun, see if people will even show up. Me, I was just being skeptical, because I was just like, a lot of the clubs, especially that were outside of sports and whatnot, I never knew if there was only this, like it was like a group of 4 people and whatnot. And I was like, how fun could that actually be? And then I get there, and it's like a freaking huge room with like, there was at least 15 of us on like a good day or so. On like an average day, it's like over 10. There's over 10 people.
Some days there would be like not enough chairs for people. Like
exactly.
There's a couple years before the pandemic, especially, like there was a huge membership. There's like 300 people on the email list active.
Oh wow.
On the email list. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Wow. So yeah, it was a much bigger crowd, and I was like, immediately you just get excited, and you walk into energy that's already like, pulsing. It's like people laughing, talking. You hear a corner talking about, whatever music debate or who just dropped, and what do I like, what I don't like. And then you get people just freestyling to just music that's just playing already, and they're just like kind of warming up for the Cypher. But yeah, the thing that obviously we were just talking about, the double entendre, but that's I fell in love with just like words in general. As like nerdy as that sounds, but just being in that room with everyone and just seeing how creative everyone was astounding to me. Like I had grown up playing sports the majority of my life. Like I had never been in like the music field besides being like a huge fan of it. I had like the first stop on the bus in the morning and like the last stop at the bus in the afternoon. So I had a whole lot of time, like almost 30 to 40 minutes to just be like running songs on my iPod that I burned on like YouTube MP3 downloader because I couldn't afford Spotify. And so I go from that to then just hearing like, what was her Destiny was her name? She was amazing. Marcus, we were talking about, was amazing. And it's just like, they were just teaching me so much with either actual advice that they were delivering to me or just them being themselves. Like you could just feel like, they felt like a truer version of themselves when they were rapping or, freestyling in whatever fashion. And so it was just also cool seeing even producers who didn't rap, they would just try to jump in, have a little fun with it. And I think that was a cool way for us to all have a newfound perspective, but then also appreciation for the music, because we realize, for a producer, you realize how hard rapping is. And for a rapper, you realize how hard making a good beat is. Because if you're hearing some bad ones and you're hearing some good ones, you can immediately start to tell like, okay, I see what makes a good song.
Yeah. If you're only ever rapping on YouTube beats, you don't realize how bad beats could be.
Exactly. So yeah. And I think that whole experience itself was extremely educational for me. And I felt extremely grateful for being in something like that. And then obviously it even gave me an opportunity to then meet you. You know, we started collaborating. You recorded, I think, one of my first recordings ever, and it was for someone else's song. We went from there to then, we recorded like my first ever EP. I did a performance at our like the spring concert and stuff, and then I feel like from there it's just like we just stayed locked in on music, locked in on, you know, each other's businesses and our, you know, our own pursuits and endeavors. And so I just wanted to also take a moment to just be like, you know, I'm very grateful to have met you and, you know, created what we've created together and, you know, separate. Because I don't know if many people know, but if you check those credits on a lot of the beats on anything Omniscient Studios, MilkyWaay's name's right on there. So, you know, please give him that credit, give him that love. Now this is a super big collaborator of ours, and you know, Thomas, thank you again for working with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate.
I'm not trying to make this sound like the interview's ending or anything, but I found a good moment. I felt like I should thank you.
No, I appreciate all the work that we put in together too. Like, we've always been, you know, able to like help each other with each other's projects, which has been really cool. And also like find some stuff to work with on each other too. Yeah, and even like when you started making beats, like I was able to help you like, you know, answer some of your questions when you were starting to make beats. And
hit you up on FaceTime or like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, random.
Yeah, so that was like super cool to have you go from like just an artist, not just an artist, but like one of the artists I was working with in college to like somebody who was like making the beats with me.
Yeah, that was so much fun. And one of my favorite things, because we were also talking a little bit earlier about navigating the hurdles between technicality, you know, creativity, and maybe there's certain impasses in between both, because it's like you also don't want to go into a session where you're like, I'm in this mood and I'm gonna make this type of beat, because then that also stops you from doing so much. I want to talk about a little bit of, you know, what we've done somewhat recently and like has been a little bit of a pattern of ours, but we go into a spin wheel. Could you explain the wheel a little bit?
Yeah, so this is inspired by like pretty much carnival games where you spin the wheel and you get something. So basically we just put in a whole bunch of either like genres, like we'll put jazz or, you know, trap or R&B, or we'll put in like type beats, like, you know, a Lil Baby type beat or a Travis Scott type beat, or we'll even do like sample something. We'll put all these in like a big wheel and then we'll spin it to decide either what type of beat we're gonna make or what instrument we're gonna start with, or, you know, what methods we're gonna use. And it's just a great way to you lay out a whole bunch of different options for yourself, and then you kind of just like pick one. So you don't, it's almost like you're avoiding like 2 traps at once. You're avoiding this trap of just like doing the first thing that comes to mind by giving yourself all these options. And then you're also avoiding the trap of like giving yourself too many options and not knowing which one to pick by just like spinning the wheel and letting chance decide. And what I was saying earlier about just making like different stuff, it's a great way to just kind of like brainstorm like different ideas. You know, the first thing that comes to mind might be the kind of beat on the album that you just listened to on the way home. And maybe that's from the album that you've been listening to for like a month, and you've just like, you're kind of like, and maybe that's your favorite artist also, so you like that type of music a lot. This is a great way to kind of like get out of like the box and, you know, think outside of the box.
100%. So I want to touch upon a little bit of that analysis paralysis that a producer or even an artist can get into, whether they're writing a music or whatever it is. How do you navigate that if you're not using the wheel? What does that look like for you? It's like, for at least I could say for myself, I'm pretty impulsive. So the only analysis paralysis I'd be getting is when I get down to mixing and I'm just like, oh no, like which one should be higher, lower, and just like when I'm started playing with all the plugins. But what's that experience for you?
Yeah, sometimes, you know, I'll just open up FL Studio and I'll just, you know, sit there and be like, oh man, I could do anything right now.
So many sounds, so many samples, so much.
Samples from Splice, I got samples from Cymatics, I got samples from the other sample pack. I could go on this other website that somebody told me about.
You got samples from your own sample pack?
I got my own samples, or I could start with a VST and I got like 50 of those to choose from. So, and like, or maybe I just pick a genre and start from that, but then like there's a million different genres. So it can be tough. And I'd say like that's one of the number one issues I run into as a producer, just like having so many different options. The wheel is a great way to like get past that. And I have a couple other like strategies to get past that. I would say like there's no getting rid of it like forever though. There's no way to kind of like unlock this level of like creativity where you just never run into roadblocks. It's part of the experience. So you just got to kind of give yourself tools to go around it. And one of them is the wheel helps. Another one is just kind of like, what I like to do is I like to just kind of like listen through, and the first sample I listen to, like that kind of like catches my ear, I'll just go for that. Even if I don't like already have an idea what to make for the drums, I'll just kind of like go for that and just like try to push myself through it and try to get to a finished beat. Sometimes it comes out bad, but at least like I've gotten over the roadblock and I've finished a beat, and then the next beat I'm past that roadblock and I can make the next beat like kind of unencumbered by that roadblock.
That's interesting. This kind of reminds me of I don't know, have you ever seen the anime Demon Slayer?
No.
So this is not a spoiler or anything, but there's this character who has a difficulty making decisions, and the main character comes up to her and says, here's a coin. Every time you flip it, whatever it lands on, that's what you're going to end up doing. And that's a very straightforward approach. It's 50-50. If I have two choices, I'll let this thing make that choice for me. And I don't remember if the point of it was in this show or in something else that I watched, but when you're flipping the coin and the coin's flipping and it's halfway in the air, somewhere in your gut, it tells you already know what you want.
Your gut reacts.
Your gut reacts saying, I hope it's this. Yeah. I hope it's not this one.
Sometimes you can flip a coin and make the decision without even looking at the answer, because you like catch it and without looking at it, like, I hope it's heads. And then it's like, well, just don't even look. Just do with the option for heads then. That's what exactly.
Leading that into instinct, it seems like, at the end of the day, is going to be the thing that helps determine it. I feel like, what do you think that is? Why do we disguise our instinct with all these choices? Like, we already know what we want to do, but then we tell ourselves, well, maybe it's the first choice, I shouldn't choose the first choice. But then it's like your instinct, maybe it's the fifth choice, and you're like, maybe I'm getting tired of listening to a bunch of beats or samples. Maybe my fifth choice isn't a valid, maybe I'm just getting tired. Why do we do that to ourselves? Why do you think?
Yeah, sometimes I think it's because we have, so one of my hot takes here is that our actions are actually like the first thing, and then thoughts come afterward. Like the thoughts are just something to justify the actions that we wanted to do anyway. So
interesting.
Sometimes I think like when we're stuck making a beat, like sometimes it's because like you just have like other stuff going on that you're thinking about, and it's like you almost to like make a beat, you almost have to kind of like get rid of like the other thoughts and like distractions and just kind of like zone out from the real world and just kind of like focus in on it to FL Studio. It's almost like entering like a different level of like reality that you're like, I mean, I'm getting too like
no, it's a meditative state.
Yeah, it's almost like you're entering this meditative state that you like can't get into with these distractions. So sometimes it's about like putting away like the distractions, and that's way easier said than done. Like getting, especially like when you have like serious stuff on your mind, getting that stuff off your mind to make beats is challenging sometimes. But again, like finding the right like tools to just kind of like put that stuff aside and just kind of like zone out and like focus on the beat, I feel like is the best thing that you can do to make the beat sometimes.
I like that. And so if I may ask, let's say you're in a poor headspace for the day, whatever could have happened to you or to anyone else that you know, right? You still got to make a beat that night. You got to go to the studio, you got to do a collaboration. You already made that commitment. How do you show up for that? How do you like, get your mind ready, and how do you stay creative when you're dealing with so much, real world?
Yeah, a lot of the times I like to think of the sessions as a distraction from the real world. Because a lot of times, like, me and the artist are meeting at the studio after both having worked a long day, and, we're both like working for our paycheck so we can pay our rent at the end of the month. But then when we get to the studio, it's nice to just kind of like put that aside and talk to not like your coworkers, but like somebody with the same creative interests as you, and like work together on a goal that you want to do, not just like what you're assigned to do at work. So it's nice to treat that almost like the sessions. It's nice to treat them almost as like this form of escapism, and to just be able to like, kind of like push everything else away and just like get down to like what I want to do. It almost sounds selfish. It almost sounds like childish. Like I just want to do what I want to do. But
isn't that the goal though?
yeah, it's nice to just kind of like do that and like satisfy my inner child and just like let him, play around on the keyboard for an hour. And of course, I make a good beat at the end of the day. Like, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's nice to just treat that as a form of escapism.
So, in any given situation, would you prioritize play when you're making music? Like, regardless of this type of session?
Not so much in front of like when I'm making a beat for other artists.
Mhm.
Like if I'm sitting down and making a beat for an artist and they paid me for the session and stuff, I want
You're locked in.
yeah, I'm locked in. I want the beat to come out really good.
Right.
But when I'm making beats for myself, or not even just for myself, but when I'm making beats on my own, I definitely prioritize like playing and learning every time. Like you want to always try out something new or try out something that's like fun. There's been times where I've been like too focused on like, oh, I'm trying to make like this type beat so I can grow my YouTube channel, and it just gets like boring and repetitive, and you stop like learning, and it just becomes like about doing the reps as opposed to like learning or being creative. And yeah, I'll never really like that, just like putting in the reps. I always want to be having fun, learning something new. Yeah.
And where would you say you learn more, in isolation or working with others in person? Whether that be the kitchen, whether that be a studio session someone booked with you, or whatever scenario.
Well, I would say that there's a different type of learning that happens in both kind of environments, because when you're alone, you can like pick up a lot of like new techniques like easily. Like you can like look up stuff on YouTube. I'm not going to look up a tutorial on YouTube like in a session. I'm not just gonna, yeah, that seems a little silly. But
like, see, but why does that feel silly? It's like at the end of the day, don't like the artist you both share the same interest in mind. You want to make the best song possible. If me looking up how to make this 808 bang harder, why not just give me 2 seconds? He was gonna be sitting there waiting. He's probably still writing anyway.
Yeah, that seemed like a little silly now that I'm saying it.
But it makes sense. It's silly, but it's not silly. You know what I mean? It's like, I get the point you're making. It's like, you want to come off as professional as possible. And it's like, if I'm looking something up in the moment, is he going to have second thoughts being like, is he an actual good producer? Like, is this someone I can trust? But it's like, should I not trust the person that's seeking out the information to verify that he's going to be doing it right?
Yeah. And in reality, I have looked up stuff in sessions, so.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, I cut you off a little bit, but I feel like that was like a curious point that I was like, let's dig into that a little.
Yeah, wait, what was the question originally?
So the question was whether in isolation you feel like you learn more versus, being in person with others. And you're saying it's kind of different.
Yeah, so in isolation, you really get to pick up on like new techniques and learn different stuff. Whereas when you're in front of people, it's about like locking in and like perfecting stuff. So it's not just about like trying new things, but it's about like making sure that the drums are hitting as hard as possible, making sure that the mix is like as clean as possible. So like when you're alone, it's more of like the creative stuff and like learning just like new skills and like learning how to learning different like approaches. Whereas when you're making beats for clients and for sessions, it's more about like the technicality of it and like bringing it up that extra like 10% from like a good beat to a great beat.
Interesting. I wonder, like, do you feel like the artists come in with that same mentality? I wonder if the opposite mentality serves them better, where it's like, if I allow MilkyWaay, the producer, to feel more structured and serious, then I get to play more. Do you think that it's that type of relationship that you get to see more often, or maybe explain what you actually see?
So a lot of the artists that I work with are not very reactive to the kind of beat that I make, or like the style of beat that I'm making. I feel like a lot of the artists, like they're just gonna do their own style, like they're just gonna kind of do their own thing and like write as they go, and like it kind of like I feel like they wouldn't be doing it.
What do you mean by like reactive? Like, do you mean like they're like saying, "Oh no, fix this," or add this?
I guess I guess what I mean is like they wouldn't be doing it any differently if they were just getting a beat off of YouTube. Like the process
is the same. It's just give me a beat, I'll write something to it.
Yeah, once they kind of catch the bounce, they're just kind of like writing to it. And
right. You only really need drums to really start writing, to be honest. But
yeah, but my favorite kind of artists to work with are the ones that are giving me ideas while I'm working, either saying like, either just like talking to me saying like, ooh, I like that, or I don't like that, or whatever, or giving me ideas like, oh, let's do it, we could do it like a drop right here, or yeah, okay, I think I like that for the hook, but let me hear it without the 808s for the verse, or something like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
the artists who are giving me their input and like actually like listening to the beat and like imagining what it could be. I feel like those are the most fun artists to work with, because yeah, it just gives me there's not too much of a difference between me making a beat on my own,
But it's
then
almost like you're feeding each other energy.
right, yeah, and you just get more on the same wavelength, and then I feel like the song comes out way better because you guys are just on the same wavelength.
I think too, even from the point, because obviously we've worked together before, whether I was the one recording or we were the one just making the beat together. And I even feel like there's a level of excitement and enthusiasm that makes the beat better, because if you're building on excitement, you're looking, you're searching, you're wanting to find something to make it even better. If I'm not like really feeling that excited or into it or like jumping onto it, if I'm the rapper, my performance might not be how great as it can be. Maybe if I was inputting earlier and having more of a collaboration with you, I could come into the verse even stronger. Because maybe honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, what if the aspect of this is that I feel a sense of ownership as the artist, that as the person rapping, working with Thomas, working with MilkyWaay, that if I'm helping collaborate on the sound that I'm going to be rapping on, I can really give my full self, because there's already a part of me in it too, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like, navigate my way through that thought, but yeah.
No, that's definitely part of the sell. Like when I'm selling people, like when I'm trying to get people to come in for like sessions, like it's definitely part of it is like, you can tell me like what kind of beats you like, and you can give me the live feedback, so that this is not just like somebody's beat that you got on YouTube, but it's your beat. And nobody else is going to end up with this beat. It's not going to be sold on YouTube. It's just your beat.
Right. And it's not going to be sold on YouTube, and you're not going to hear like 3 different versions when you look it up on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One of the other things that you just kind of reminded me of is like this idea that the producer is almost like a liaison between the beat and the artist. And so if the artist is like really with the beat, but the producer is like not on the same level as the artist might be kind of thrown off from just recording by themselves. So it's important that like not only is the beat good for the artist, but like the producer has to be like kind of like also in the same headspace. Like everybody's kind of got to be on the same level. The beat and the artist have to be vibing together. The producer and the beat have to be working well together, and the producer and the artist have to be working well.
I'm trying to think about the right way to like formulate this thought. So do you think it's possible for artists to grow without being around other artists?
So in some art forms, I feel like you can just lock yourself away in like a wood cabin and like paint for 12 years and a master. But in terms of music, and maybe it's hip hop specifically, I feel like the collaboration is so important. And not just like collaborating, like not just getting beats from a producer off YouTube, but like being in the room with other people and like seeing how people are reacting to your music. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about getting, I mean, for some people, it is just about getting like as great as they can be at one specific style. But for a lot of other people, it's like about finding like what catches people's attention. It's not just about like making your music, but it's about like connecting with people too. So you have to see people's reaction to it. You got to be in the room.
And so is that what it is for you?
Yeah, a big part of it. I love seeing people's reactions to my beats and stuff. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. During the pandemic, I was having trouble. Like, I mean, I was making beats a lot, but it was less encouraging because there weren't like people freestyling on my beats like
every Thursday. Yeah,
the whole time throughout the pandemic, I was like thinking about getting back to the hip hop club so that people, for that in-person feel, like that was always on my mind.
So at least what I'm hearing is that the people need an event that everyone needs to get together. The reason we're laughing right now is because actually Thomas and I, MilkyWaay and Omniverse Studios, have decided to host an event. This was it, May 16th?
Yep.
16th, right? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we're going to be hosting the Best 16 Cypher, which is like kind of a continuation of my Cypher series. It's the second Cypher. It's really the third Cypher. And this one is going to be, there's going to be 2 halves of it. And I want to talk about the second half first because it was what we were just talking about. So the second half is really aimed to like recapture the energy of the Yukon Hip Hop Initiative, that freestyle club at Yukon that we were talking about. And it's just going to be same thing, just a big circle, we're going to like rent out a studio and just make a big circle of couches and chairs and stuff and just have people come in and freestyle. And there's going to be no recording or nothing, no cameras or nothing, because I just want to capture that vibe, that energy of just like being in the room, like everybody just kind of like eating their snacks and stuff and just like freestyling.
No one feels uncomfortable that it's like, oh, I got to make sure my verse is nice, or like, I'm going to get clipped.
How this is going to look tomorrow, or
I don't want anyone. Yeah, we don't want anyone feeling weird or like feeling judged. We want people to feel free. Like, again, we were talking about play. The aspect of play is so important in the learning, but please continue.
Definitely. And then the other half of the event is going to be, there's content is important too. And we want artists to feel like they have a chance to come through and, promote some of their work. And then the second half of this event is going to be what we call like the Best 16 series, which is where artists are going to be encouraged to come through and do a performance of the best 16 bars of either their most recent song or their upcoming song or something that they want to promote. And we're going to shoot the whole thing and put them up, the performance videos on YouTube and Instagram and on social media, so that artists have a chance to promote, something that they've either been working on or that they're releasing soon, and to kind of use the kitchen platform to promote some artists. And then we're also going to get some local brands there and some local platforms, really centered on providing value for artists. I want to bring in some other platforms besides the kitchen that can provide some value to artists, and also, some artists in adjacent mediums like graphic design or videography who could collaborate with artists. So this is really
photography, all that.
Yeah. This is really an opportunity for artists to come through and both show off their own work, check out some resources that could be valuable to them, and then also just hang out, chill, and freestyle.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that, especially to even just be a fly on the wall. Maybe I'll participate, maybe not. Maybe I'll get in a quick double entendre if I can.
I'm gonna be rapping, so you better be rapping.
Oh, you're gonna rap? Okay, I'm gonna hold you.
I'm
to
gonna
this.
be hosting it, so I don't want everybody else to like. I gotta make.
You have to get part of. Okay. I'm gonna hold you to it. If I don't see you rapping, okay.
I've been practicing. I'm getting ready.
Okay, perfect. So then we'll definitely both get into it. But yeah, I'm just really excited to, go for that feeling again. You were just talking about it. You were feeling it over COVID, where you're making beats, and it's like, I miss being able to play this on a Thursday and let see everyone's reaction, whether they liked it, they didn't. If someone had a really cool verse on it, that could stick with me. I want to have that experience again, where we create that, where we kind of reinvigorate that, that energy, especially nowadays where everyone's at home for the most part, still post-pandemic. Everyone's getting more and more isolated with social media, the surge of AI in every aspect. People are now talking to it like a therapist. So it's like, if I'm talking to my AI as like a therapist, the aspect of using music as therapy, I feel like it starts to get hindered or, pushed to the side. And music is, for me at least, it's one of the most therapeutic things, whether I'm listening to it or making it. I wanted to hear what's your relationship with that.
Let me talk about the AI stuff real quick, because that was one of the main inspirations for this kind of like in-person stuff. I feel like that AI is like making a lot of content. There's like millions of AI songs that are being uploaded to Spotify. There's like tons of like AI content on social media. And so it's getting way harder to like promote your music, and like actually it's getting harder to even just have your own followers see your content when you're just getting like flooded out by AI content. And there's no way that you're ever going to be able to like make more
than a freaking computer. You might make quality, but quantity is going to be the problem.
So another one of the inspirations behind this event was to just get people in the same room together and kind of get people out of their bedrooms and, have 30 artists in the same room, because getting 30 likes on a social media post might not feel like that much, but seeing
imagine 30 people say, yo, that verse was fire in front. 30 people going like, ooh, at the Cypher is like that could be the high moment of somebody's year, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I love so much those Thursdays, because then you could see who walked out feeling like this shit. Like you could see like, oh,
Yeah.
I did my thing today.
Some of the people from the Cypher, like I still think they're some of the like the coolest people ever, just because seeing them when they're like hitting those like fire lines, when they line it up with like the first line and the second line just like finishes off the idea and rhymes so well. It's like, what?
Yeah. How'd you think of this right now, spontaneously?
Like, you're telling me you didn't write this? You're telling me you haven't been practicing this?
Yeah, see, that's the thing too. It's like even the relationship with the term freestyle, people are losing that aspect where freestyle used to be, at least back in the day, to my knowledge, a freestyle would just be a written, like it would just be no chorus, no hook. It would just be straight through. You write about, talk about anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I feel like people have this conception that freestyle, it has to be, what they used to call back then off the dome. That's what we're really doing. We're not coming in with just, pre-prepared verses. We were literally sitting in a circle, played a beat, and everyone was just coming up with something in the moment. Whether they messed up, whether they didn't, they stopped, had to catch the beat back again. Like we were all patient, watching and waiting, and super excited to just hear what the person's next line would be. And we all fed off each other's energy, which was again another fun aspect of it.
And there's like this whole culture this whole culture that arises from it, because you get people like rhyming and then they mess up, they can't finish the rhyme, but then they just keep going from that word that they messed up on. Like there's all sorts of stuff that like arises from like this.
We're like collaborating. We're like, oh, say basketball or scissor, whatever. We just throwing out words and with this.
Or somebody else doing the ad libs and do like funny ad libs.
Yeah. Funny ad. That was so much fun.
Like lost in like that stuff's not gonna make it into like recording, but it's like such a cool part of the freestyling process and a cool part of like that Cypher process. And even like the Cyphers that I've had so far have been like more focused on content. So I really want to, provide the space to bring back that like real like freestyling off the dome, just sitting in a circle, no recording, just
having fun. Let's just bring back having fun. Why not? Let's just do that. Why not? It just feels like having fun feels so forced nowadays. Is that what you feel too?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It feels like
I feel like everybody's trying to sell you having fun. No, just come to their freestyle club and just just hang out with you, even if you don't want to freestyle.
Like that's 100% the energy that I think a lot of people are missing. And at least for me, I grew up playing soccer a lot, and I always felt that like being on the field was a place where I couldn't even remember if I've ever thought about anything else while I was playing. Whenever I play, it's the only time where it's like I completely feel like everything else around the world disappears. The reason I fell in love with making music is because I realized when I was making beats, I was experiencing that almost like same exact feeling that I felt when I was on the pitch, where it was like I had to have fun. I got to be creative. I didn't have to do as much running. I wasn't sweating my ass off, but my legs definitely were getting tired because I was sitting on my ass for way too many hours just staring at these freaking lines and re-listening to a sample or a loop over and over again just to get it right. So definitely feel very grateful for having had experiences that are nice, markers, I would say. It's like, I know what that feeling felt like. So I can now relate it to any of these other situations. So it's like, if I'm making music in isolation and it's not feeling like how I felt with the Hip Hop Initiative, then that's something that they're still missing. So that's why I think this is so important, that there's always a little more that can be gained from even the things that you already do love and enjoy. And I think that is the in-person with other people aspect of it.
Yeah, being like when you're having fun and the people around you are having fun, like it makes you have more fun.
100%.
One of the other ways that I've been trying to kind of like bring music back into like the real world and off of this social media where we don't have to compete with the AIs is through like my 3D printing and like my kind of physical products.
You have a 3D printer?
Yeah, I got this 3D printer. We're on FaceTime right now, so you can actually see it in the back, but they're not going to be able to see it. But yeah, I've been designing like 3D gadgets and stuff to kind of like give artists a way to get their fans more excited about their music.
So you're selling this?
Yeah, I've got a couple different 3D printed products. Yeah, the first one that is like super like versatile, I would say, is like a 3D printed custom flash drive case. So the one that I made is I made some for myself to sell my samples. It's in the shape of a sauce bottle.
Oh, that's so
It's
cool.
in line with the kitchen.
The sauce,
And
that's fly.
you're adding the sauce to your beats. So it's just a sauce bottle, and you unscrew the cap, and it's got a flash drive on the inside. You plug it in, it's got all my samples. And so obviously an artist could put whatever, they could put their album on there, or some unreleased songs, or even videos, like some vlogs of behind the scenes stuff. And then the other product I have is like a little keychain. It's one of those keychains where you tap it against the top of your phone to bring up a link to your album.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that artists would love that, or even producers.
So most of the artists have been doing it as a way where you just bring up like a link tree to all the streaming services, which is a great idea. Like that's a great idea. But the other way that you could do this is you could actually sell your album on these keychains, where the keychain brings up a private link to stream your album.
Direct to consumer, huh?
Yep, direct to consumer. You would just have to set up your own website to like listen to the album. But then you sell the keychains with a private link there for like $5 or $10, and that's how you buy the album.
Wow. Damn. And is that a button? You talked about buttons that you do, or?
Yeah, so one of the other 3D printed things I have, this is the one that's like flying.
Yeah, because I saw one in the background right now. I was like, okay, whoa, that's sick.
I got the logo one here too. So I've got these buttons, and it's almost like an easy button where it's just a big button, and you press down and it plays your producer tag instead of saying that was easy.
Wow.
I've got them customized so you can have your name on it or your logo on it in whatever color you want. These are available on my website. Check them out on MilkyWaay.com if you're interested.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Oh yeah, I definitely will be checking that out. Definitely will be getting a button. That keychain especially sounds like a really cool idea, but it even brought up even some questions to mind, or not really questions, but more observations. Is, we're moving into also obviously like an oversaturated market where, there's a trillion freaking songs on Spotify being released every single day. You're getting 9,000ths of a penny every time your song gets played. So it's like, it's almost impossible to make music unless you're touring or you're selling merch. But direct to consumer is something that I feel like for a while people have been having challenges getting across, because I don't remember the last time I bought an album unless it was like a vinyl. To be honest, I feel bad, but hey, it is what it is.
Well, but, even since like Russ was like the first person to like make big, I mean, not the first person to make big waves, but like I feel like he was like the first person who inspired our generation to start like pushing this like direct to consumer and independent artists. And there's a lot of people who are like really successful at it, even though it seems like we haven't, like, that has not been able to produce as many like pop stars as the major label system. There's a lot of people who are, happily employed, like self-employed, making a lot of money to being an independent musician. So and there's a lot of people to learn from. If there's anybody listening to this right now and that's your goal, there's tons of people who are making an independent living, and not only making an independent living for themselves, but like supporting their team also. Look at people like Russ, looking at somebody like La Russell. There's tons of people to learn from right now.
How would you define hip hop at its core? Because I know we've been speaking a little bit about it in regards to like collaboration or just the energy that people feel. But for you, what's your relationship, and what do you feel is the core, the essence of it?
Yeah, that was a good question. So the biggest things that have like drawn me into like hip hop and turned it not just from like an interest, but like something that's like my main hobby, like something that I'm spending like all my time doing, is like, one, the community. There's such a like big active community around hip hop, and like for people who complain about like the hip hop scene, just try looking into like any other scene. Like there's so many fewer people who are like actually like making music in other genres, or who are like out there like collaborating and like going to like events and studios and like meeting people. Like hip hop is easily the most like social genre of music.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. So being so surrounded by so many other people who like have the same interests has definitely been like a huge draw for me. Just having so many other people to like talk to and get excited about the stuff, and not just get excited about, but like make the stuff and be excited while you're like making it. In college, I was in my dorm room like with a different person every day who lived within a 10-minute walk of me who was making music. It was such a cool environment. So definitely like the community aspect is like a huge thing. And then another big thing that has drawn me to hip hop that I feel like we're losing a little bit in the age of like social media is like the authenticity aspect of hip hop. Back in the day, like everybody was just like encouraged to just like not like make up stories, just like be yourself and like be
Right.
bold.
Don't sound like so and so just to get a quick
Don't
buck.
try to sound like like make your own style. Like, and a lot of the most successful artists have just like stayed true to their style, and they started making that style like 10 years before it actually came into style. But just because they stuck with it for like 10 years,
now they're getting awards as best new artists when they've been making music for 10 years.
Right. Or even I just think about somebody like Tyler the Creator, like his sound like has constantly changed.
Right.
Like he was somebody who was like like kept on the outside, kind of like kept on the fringes because his ideas were like kind of weird, but he just like he stuck to his ideas and he stuck to he
stayed consistent
with his weird ideas, but yeah, like he just stayed consistent with his like work and his effort. And I feel like the culture eventually like really rewarded him for just that authenticity. And now I feel like he's just in like such a solid place, in a way better place than any artist who ever is gonna like make their career off of copying Future.
So would you say resilience is the essence of hip hop? From at least your perspective.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to say like it's the essence of hip hop, but I do feel like it's a big, it's definitely very, very like deeply integrated in there. And so it's not even something that like people bring up a lot, but like there's definitely an aspect, like a big heavy aspect to like keep going, keep trying, keep pushing your mixtape every day, keep recording, like keep dropping songs, like and sometimes people call it delusion. Sometimes people say you almost got to be delusional because you have to believe in something that nobody else believes in,
or maybe no one even heard because you haven't even finished the beat, but this one's gonna be the one.
Yeah, for real.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, MilkyWaay. It has been a pleasure. Before we end off, let the people know your Instagram, YouTube, Twitter's, X, whatever it's called now. Let them know all of it.
Yeah, so you can tap in with me personally at my Instagram, which is DJ_MilkyWaay. That's MilkyWaay with 2 A's. Or you can check out The Kitchen on YouTube, which is the_kitchen_CT. Or you can tap in at my website and check out any of my beats or 3D printed products at MilkyWaay.com. Again, MilkyWaay with 2 A's. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course, no, anytime. And we're definitely going to talk again. But just really quickly, let people know, what do you sell on that website, by the way?
So I've got the 3D printed products I was talking about. I've got some beats, and you can also request a consultation with me as a producer, an artist, or somebody interested in a custom 3D print.
And if I wanted to get onto The Kitchen, how could I get that done?
Best way is to reach out to me on Instagram, and honestly, buy a beat off of my website, or just DM me and like ask for a beat and make a good song. I like to have people on that I know I work well with, so I like to get in a session or at least get in a demo first.
So you heard that, guys. Make sure you're not sending him some weak song. Come in with that heat. That's the only way you're gonna get onto The Kitchen. No,
you can't take the heat. Take it in the kitchen.
You heard it here first. All right, MilkyWaay, thank you.